Hi everybody, welcome to the summing up session. We've had 4 sessions now, and in those 4 sessions we have done a multitude of things. We have gone from brand essence, equity, personality, dimension. We've looked at perceptual positioning mapping. We've looked at PESTLE. We've looked at SWOT. We've looked at Porter's 5 forces. And in particular, what Porter also is actually suggesting for the future and how those can move on. So those 4 sessions, let's take them individually. First, the first session was the introduction session. And what did we do? We looked at we did a little bit of revision, going back to marketing strategy, and we looked at the elements of the 4 Ps. And you saw that video I had done about the 4 Ps and segmentation, targeting, and positioning. So if you don't feel comfortable about it at the moment, go back, watch those things, and revisit what Kelvin has put in the PowerPoint decks from the previous sessions. So that's kind of the start of that. We also just had a bit of fun with VUCA. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, and of course it's just a way of thinking, but I was bringing you back to that whole thing. Instead of seeing it as volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, bring it back to turn that volatility into vision, turn the uncertainty into understanding, turn the complexity into clarity, turn the ambiguity into agility and adaptability. We've got to do that in today's world. Especially when we have things like COVID-19, it's really quite difficult. We have to keep bearing in mind what we've got. We also looked at the touch points. We looked at where you interact with your favourite brands, why you do, how you do. We looked at the brand touch point wheel. And at first you found it slightly difficult to realise that you're interacting with that brand all the time. Like I'm interacting with one of my favourite pieces of kit right now, and that is the Microsoft Surface. I love it and I enjoy it, and I'm looking at it to do this talk. I'm actually looking at that with you now, and there's a great big thing which says Microsoft on it, Surface. I can't forget that I'm looking at that. So I'm interacting with the brand, it's doing the video right now. It's making me feel comfortable that I've got the right kit for the job. So we also looked at the difference between products, the difference between a product and a brand, and fundamentally what a product is and what a brand brings, and that whole thing about tangible and intangible. And I think that that's one of the key things we've got to think about, is just remembering that we actually are looking at these things in terms of, it's not always easy to say why you like a particular thing or why you don't, but it's there. There's the emotional attachment. I also asked you at the end of that session to look at the piece I suggested, which was 30 definitions of a brand. And those 30 definitions were by practitioners. They weren't by academics, but they were by practitioners who use these things every single day. I also said that when I looked at a brand, I saw it in a very simple way. And I saw it in terms of managing expectations of the buyer, of the user, of the consumer. It's about creating, building, and maintaining. Thus, you can manage those expectations. That is the start of that whole brand management. The second session. What do we do in the second session? Okay. By the way, that's my parents' back garden. It's rather nice. It's a beautiful sunny day. So, if we look at session 2, what did we do there? We actually first off looked at BLM, Black Lives Matter, and I asked you the questions. Is it a brand? I asked you, where was the traction from? They didn't have loads of money like Unilever or Procter & Gamble or Apple or whoever. So where was the traction? What are the symbols? What are the logos? What are the words? What is this TLA? BLM, TLA, 3-letter abbreviation. What are the actions associated with this too? Because the actions, taking a knee, where did they come from? Well, we know where they come from. We know that there's a source behind that, and we know that's the creation of the story behind it and giving the whole thing credence. Absolutely important we think about those things as opposed to it just happened. It doesn't just happen. There's thought behind these things as well. So We also continue to look at brand management in itself, and managing what is perceived and what is delivered, and ensuring that they are that promise is actually maintained and delivered to the end user. We also looked at the brand strategy in terms of understanding the brand story. And we looked at the Johnny Walker case, which was a lovely story with Robert Carlyle. Fantastic piece, incredibly well put together, absolutely. And I think that what we also have to think here is when are the benefits of the branding. And so we looked at the brand story a little bit, and then we've just got to think of the brand benefits of those brands. The key little benefits, it's all about risk reduction, it's about quality, it's about belonging, etc., etc., etc. Without me going into huge details there. But what does it do for us? So we looked at the brand dimensions, the function, the image, the difference, where it's all coming from. It's forming the brand essence. Remember, if you didn't do this, it's read, but if you did do this, it is reread. And that is Giles Robertson, one of our faculty members, superb marketing man, practitioner as well as academic. He actually was contributor to a lovely piece in the Telegraph during lockdown. And it was why you need to hone your online reputation in lockdown. Reread that. That's on Brio right now. Okay? So, on to session 3. What did we do in session 3? What we did in session 3, we started by looking at the 10 key principles of brand management. I know we also ended with another article which said the 12 key principles of brand management. So it's up to you really to work out what some of those are and how relevant they are and why we're talking about it. And there's lots of opinion, and you have to form your opinion and create your own evaluation of that. So this is all about being critical. We looked at brand essence, we looked at those dimensions, we looked at brand value, we looked at creating that loyalty, we looked at how brand equity goes to create that brand value. So we looked at brand comms in order to also look at it in terms of what is that comms doing? That is actually going towards creating more brand equity, the loyalty, the purchase, the recommendation, etc. Brand personality, creating the story. Now we're really going to go into that next week. Or this coming week, I should say. And that's when I love that part, I must confess. So we're going to go into that. And I've got my friends over at Fiat Chrysler Automobiles. They are hopefully giving us a whole lot about the Fiat 500 and how that was created in the brand itself. So that's, fingers crossed, that should be fun. Session 4. We looked at positioning, perceptual maps. Positioning maps, perceptual maps. We looked at PESTLE, we looked at SWOT. I'm not going to go through those now because you know what they are. We also looked at Michael Porter's 5 forces and what he thinks now after 30 years down the line. We looked at the assignment in terms of the structure. I said I want a little more structure than it's suggesting in the actual paper because I do want a report style. I do want an executive summary which actually says what is being done. It is actually the last thing which is written in the whole report. I do want a good contents page. I do want a good introduction. So I'm having the signposts and the directions that I require when I'm reading this and going to be marking this. I also want that main body to contain those references. I want it to contain the frameworks that are used. I want it to contain the models as well. So make sure you do that. I want a decent conclusion and I want a decent recommendation. Okay. Also, the appendices. That's where your PESTLE, your SWOT, or whatever will go, not in the main body. The information from that PESTLE or SWOT will be the critical thinking and the analysis and thus evaluation, and that'll be in the main body of the report. To finish with, we looked at brand management steps. There were kind of 4. 1, and this is very simplified. 1, identify and establish the brand position and values. 2, plan and implement. And this is the brand marketing communications programs. 3, measure brand performance. Now, of course, this is actually much easier in the digital arena because then you've got things to measure things against and it makes it slightly easier. But it's always been done and we still will be doing it in all the other media too. Remember, it's the digital platform as opposed to digital marketing. 4, this is all with one aim, and that is to grow the brand equity, thus the loyalty, thus the purchase, thus the recommendations, etc., etc. On that note, I'm going to say, right, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this overview is good, and I will speak to you all on Tuesday. Take care. Bye-bye for now.